All right, before we are officially off the ground here, let's get our Facebook groups in here. All right, got the spinning wheels going before it's official. Wow, that was quick. Boom, boom, boom. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It is 6:04 Mountain Time. It's time for an episode of Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, joined by, as always, on these Tuesday evening shows, Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing? You are a little darker today on the camera, but I can still see through the darkness. That brought to you by Daylight Savings Time, I'm sure. The beard is coming back, so thank God we don't have to replace you. I was a little concerned. I don't know, but maybe I'll do the podcast like this. It felt weird.
Yeah, I had somebody message me. They said you look like you're in high school, and that was the sealing deal of beard has to come back because I'm not going back to those high school days. But yeah, no, beard's coming back. Feel better about it. Wife likes it much better. Kids, everybody, pretty much in my life. I have like 3 people in my life. They're like, I hate the beard. The rest of the world is all you got to have this thing. So the rest of the world wins out.
Man, I like the beard. Honestly, it made me feel like covering my eyes. There's like, oh man, back to like the podcast days where you had to use the metronome to like sync up and record at the same time, and you'd send me the file. Those were a lot more back end work than we have these days, where you guys just come in and hang out with us, and it's a great time. But speaking of great time, we got to say hello to everybody coming in. We got our guy Dylan Von Arks in the house saying, "Sup Broncos country." Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. Good to see you, Dylan. Hope you're doing well. This Tuesday is treating you well. We got Mike S in the house as well. Mike, congrats, man. Big win for Bama this weekend, taking down biggest rival, second biggest rival. I don't know where you guys are at with the Iron Bowl these days. Sorry, Scott, with the state of Auburn, but LSU, Alabama's been pretty damn feisty here. And what a great win, man. Alabama, maybe the best defense in college football. Don't say they're out of the college football playoffs yet. Not yet. We'll see what happens down the stretch with Bama and that defense coming together. And yeah, a lot of fun games. So congrats to you and good to see you. Says what's up, everybody. Good, and Broncos country. Good to see you, Mike. We got our guy Papa Bear, David Mickelrath, saying good evening, Broncos country. Nick, Carl, Dylan, and Deacon Scott, 11-6. Believe MHH for life. Buckham 3 times. And Denver Broncos for life. I mean, Papa Bear, what's wrong? You have the Broncos losing another game? I thought you were a true believer. I thought this could be 12-5 that you're talking about here with a 7-0 run down the stretch. No, 11-6 would be obviously unbelievable. I hope we get to 4-5, and then we'll see where we go from there. But good to see you, Papa Bear. Always appreciate you in the chat, bringing the good vibes. Got Kevin Gray in the house saying evening. Nick, Carl, and Scott. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country. Always great to see him. We got Shot Creator. I don't recognize this name, but I definitely like Shot Creator in here saying hello. Good to see you, SC. Zach Powers, always in here, bringing interesting stuff to talk about and good retorts on whatever we're talking about as well. So always appreciate Zach. He says, afternoon, fellows. Good to see you. Hopefully it's not pitch black where you are already. We're getting those 4 p.m. sunsets out here because the darn tilt of the earth and daylight savings time, whatever. Chase Wellner, Carl, and Nick. Good to see you, Chase, one of the OGs. Michael Ronquillo, always a huge supporter, bringing in stars on the Facebook side of things. If you guys aren't like a big baller like Michael, though, dropping the super chats left and right, if you could, please drop a thumbs up over on the Facebook side of things. That'd be a great help. He says, good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Go Broncos. Go Michael. Good to see you. Albert Knopper's in here rocking a new photograph. A new photo over there on the Facebook side of things. Says, howdy, Nick, Carl, and MHH fans. Great to see you. And to talk about an OG, Paul, in the house as well, saying hello, Nick and Carl. Fantastic to see you, Paul. Hope you're doing well. And always great to hear from you. Some other people coming in. Joe coming in saying, glad you guys are on. Most of the days, I may be on here, but I'm off. But I appreciate that for the comments there. And good to see you, Joe. We also got Michael Williams coming in over on YouTube saying, hi, everyone. Do you think the Broncos can win the next game? Anything's possible, right? This is we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about that because this is Carl's chance to talk some Bills. But the Broncos, despite being 4.5-point dogs right now, have a shot. Have a shot in that game. What do you think right now, Carl? Is this about as much belief as you had in this team without the start of a season in a bit? I mean, it feels like they're playing some good ball.
Yeah, the Green Bay game was close, obviously. Came down to Broncos have to make a little comeback there in the fourth quarter. But for most of that game, they controlled everything. A couple of kind of fluky plays that got Green Bay some touchdowns. And then you look at that Chiefs game, obviously Broncos dominated from the very beginning to the very end. And so, yeah, they're believing. had this week off, gives them a little bit of rest coming into this Bills game where the Bills are kind of falling apart. I mean, they've lost to the Patriots, not a great team. Bengals are on their way up, but still, you were kind of thinking that would be a pretty darn good game back and forth. And Bengals looked like they pretty much dominated that game, most of it. And, the Bills just don't look like they've been the same. I don't know what's going on this year. They're very up and down. They had one game on defense. They've got 10 sacks. The next game, they've got 0. And so it's just so hit and miss on that team of what's going to be coming week in, week out. And so much of their offense is on the very shoulders of Josh Allen. Like, they just don't have a whole lot around him. I mean, they have Diggs, don't get me wrong, but running game pretty much non-existent other than Josh Allen. And so, yeah, I do. I think the Broncos stand a very good chance. I wish this one was in Denver. I'd feel much better about it being in Denver, but at the same time, these are the kind of games you got to go sneak a couple of these to make up for some of those early losses. And if the Broncos can win this one, you could see them go on a nice run here.
Yeah, if they win this one, man, we're going to have to walk back some of our takes from earlier when we were talking, number 1 overall pick. It's why, said at the beginning, this team looked like they're on a bad trend. Not the beginning, but, after the first few games. But it's a long season, and, don't write them off just yet. You play the games. One reason I wasn't all in on the tanking or whatever thoughts, we way too far away from that. We're still figuring out who this team is. And typically, I like to say, 8 games in, who are they? They're 3-5, but arrow trending up. The arrow's trending up for the podcast too, with Miguel Santasteven coming here saying, "Sup, fellas? Hope you all are good." And just wanted to say, I hope the Broncos win. But all I want for this game is to be a competitive game, a competent game. So, I want a little bit more than that, Miguel, because, once you get like a bite, right, you want a little bit more. The sample of a winning streak has me with a larger appetite now. But yeah, the Broncos can go in there Monday night in Buffalo. Beginning of the year, it was one of the toughest 2 games on the schedule. Now, Bills are reeling a bit, but they're still a good team. The Broncos can go in there and make it close, even though it probably says that your playoff chances, the sun is set on those, probably. If you lose that and fall to 3-6, you feel like you're building something, right? You feel like you got the right guys in here, the right infrastructure in place. Now, a lot of the names, the players will change. We still will see what happens with Russell Wilson, but the coaching staff and the direction and the investment in the team is leading to good things, in my opinion.
Right. No, I'm with you there. And we got Troy Booer coming in saying, "Hey guys, spending is bound to pay off with free agents when facilities make Denver a bit more attractive. Glad to hear reports of great practices so far this week. Have a great show." Is VJ saying that?
It's Lord knows. Or it's at least they're not talking about having the best scout team offensive line ever, like we're getting from Iowa's head coaches. Oh, that should be great. But anyway,
Yeah.
The big news here today, and Troy kind of helping us out here. Thank you so much for the $10 super. Is that the big announcement? I believe it was Adam Schefter who broke it, but the Broncos are going to be building a massive new training facility, or adding on to their current training facility, spending $175 million to update the facilities and build a new team headquarters by the start of 2026 season. So they're going to stay on the current land that they already have, and they're not expanding it or moving it somewhere else, and build state-of-the-art facilities. They put a lot of time, effort, and care into this. They asked a lot about Sean Payton. You had Penner, Kerry Walton, Damani Leach, touring a whole bunch of facilities. Mike Kliss states the Vikings, Dolphins, Bears, Raiders, Cowboys, as well as the Warriors and the Suns. They also got insight from Bo Lowry to get just see what the training side wants to look like as well. So yeah, the Broncos are going to be spending pretty awesome money to upgrade the facilities here. I don't think the Broncos facilities are poor. If you remember the offseason poll from players and staff where they kind of ranked it, then the Broncos are pretty much 12th to 20th in almost everything. So not like the Cardinals, if things are falling apart and they're having to pay for their own meals, the players, but definitely an area where you have the richest owners in the NFL, you can improve upon.
Yeah. I mean, if you bring a guy in for a free agent visit, these are the kind of things that kind of help in a little bit of that selling point. Obviously, money still talks. You still got to give him the contract, but to have an ownership that shows we're willing to put all the money possible to make a winning organization. Obviously, we still haven't seen it on the field yet, but putting $100 million into the stadium, putting now $175 million into the training facility to get everything in one central location. So players aren't having to travel, and front office people, they can all be right there together. You know, we know they spent, what was it, $200,000 on one game for the field last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really willing to put big money ahead. They're not penny pinching by any means. You know, sometimes you see some of these owners, like I said, Arizona, where they're making their players pay for food. I know Cincinnati was that way for a long time with their ownership, where they just pretty much any top players, they're letting them go because they don't want to pay big money.
Mm-hmm.
And players hated that facility for a long time. So they're putting money in the things that they can control. You know, you can't always control what's going to happen on the field, but you can control the kind of facility you have. So it's great to hear that. And so far, I would say I would give the ownership a B on how they've done so far in their couple of years with the Broncos. You know, the one bad mark is the Russell Wilson contract.
Yeah.
That's the one part for me that I can't bring them to an A with what they've done.
It's just so hard to truly evaluate them. The one thing at this point that I could give them negative remarks for if it had happened is if they were overstepping constantly, you know, instead of letting the people that they hired to make decisions. I feel like when you have big owners, sometimes they are a little bit impatient, and that results in the herky-jerkiness of an organization and some volatility. So really, you know, we're 1.5 years into this. All I can say is that they've invested in it, and they seem to care about winning and the fan experience as well. So big marks from me in that front. And they are also not using state Denver area taxpayer money to fund these things. They are using it their own pockets. I mean, these are some very wealthy people, obviously, in the Walton Penner group. And it always kind of rubs me the wrong way when they, you know, go out there like, oh my gosh, we can't pay for this. No, you can pay for this. You already, you know, I don't feel bad for you. Like, it should not be coming out of the taxpayers' wallet to fund the training facility for a sports team. So happy to see that. And I don't know. I have nothing negative to say right now about their job as the owners. We'll see what it's like, you know, a decade from now. Like I always say, Carl, I'm always like, oh yeah, give me 8 games for a player, you know, maybe a year or 2 for a coaching staff. We might need a full-on decade before we really understand the ramifications of what this new ownership group means. But they do not seem cheap, and they do not seem to be overstepping, and they seem to be very thorough in the process. I mean, the fact that they toured so many facilities, interviewed so many people, got input from all these different people in the organization already, getting buy-in from these folks. I mean, I have nothing negative to say. It seems like they care, and they want to put a winning product on the field and help their players.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So good to hear. But we've got Phil McLaughlin coming in with some stars saying, good evening, Nick, Carl, and Deacon Scott. Who's your MVP so far on O and D? Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Go Broncos. So let's start with offense, and then we'll go to defense. Who's your MVP on offense so far?
By the definition of the words MVP, most valuable player, even though he's only playing at probably a 10th to 16th ranked at his position, it probably still is Russell Wilson from that regard. Now, I think that over the last 3 games or so, it does seem like Sean Payton has dialed back a little bit of trusting Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he went from, you know, 2-wheeled bike to the training wheels back on, but it seems like it's been simplified a lot from the reads perspective. And I will say Wilson, the pre-snap stuff, we hadn't seen a lot this year. I thought it was a lot better against Kansas City. They're getting the calls in on time, and I could see a lot of line checks there. Doesn't mean it was right every time, but like that's an area we hadn't seen. I probably would still, though, just because of the value and the difference between a bad or a backup quarterback to a starter is massive. So it's probably still Wilson for me, even though I'm definitely critical of him, and some of that raw data output that he has is not the best in the world or the most indicative in the world to his play, but probably have to go him. On defense, I did it this morning with Scott. My team MVP this season is Justin Simmons. I know that he missed time, but just seeing what it looked like without him, now that was partially Josie as well. But even in that Bears game, he was out. I think Josie was back in the Bears game, and they still look dreadful. I mean, Justin Fields looked like damn Joe Montana out there, like prime MVP Cam Newton. I mean, it was awful. So Simmons, what he means for the locker room, the ability to take the ball away as well. I mean, that's cannot be overstated, taking the ball away. So those are my 2 guys.
So I'll just go, since you've done like MVP, actual true, like most value on the field, I'll go best player in my opinion, so far this year. And it would probably be on offense pretty close between Cortland Sutton and Garrett Bowles. I think Bowles has just really done well. Other than there's been like 1 or 2 games where he's had a couple bad reps on, especially the pass blocker. But as a truly overall player, he has just done outstanding this season. And then Cortland Sutton, I mean, he's made some incredible catches, and he has been the red zone offense. Do you know how many rushing touchdowns the Broncos have this year?
Uno.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so the entire red zone ability seems to be centered around whether Cortland Sutton can get himself open or go up top and make a catch. There's just not a whole lot else going on with some of the other guys. Now, there's other guys who score touchdowns, don't get me wrong, but it has really been a Sutton show when you get down there. And so, like I said, I'd have to put him up there. Defense, man, it's hard because he's only played a couple games, but Baron Browning. I mean, seriously, the impact he has had in just 2 games. The Broncos obviously won these last 2. He has been the pass rush. And it's trickled down. Now we're starting to see some of these other guys get these really nice matchups and have some of their best games as well on the field. And so it just, that's one of those things when you add a true difference maker, everybody else gets to have an easier job. Like you said, Justin Simmons coming on the field. It makes everybody else in that secondary's job so much easier when he's on the field, even if he's not the guy out there making the play. And so I know it's only been 2 games, but he has just been that special so far in those games for us.
I can't believe you didn't mention Surtain still. I mean, we did awards this morning, and I gave Cortland Sutton my offensive player of the year, offensive player of the year for the Broncos. And because I didn't want to just give MVP, I wanted to, give Cortland his flowers. Like you mentioned, 6 touchdowns this year is pretty awesome. It looks like a really good wide receiver too, honestly, in my opinion, especially considering the volume of the pass game has dropped drastically over the last half of the season played so far. So he's been great. I think, we got to throw Surtain in there a little bit. And somebody also, maybe if you're going to throw Baron Browning and what he's done in 2 game sample size, somebody who's also played great over the last 2 games, 3 games, Zach Allen has really turned a corner also, but I just don't think there's been enough snaps from them to give them that nod right now. But hey, maybe they got some guys there. So we'll see. It'll be a lot of fun down the stretch. And that's one thing too. We talk a lot about, Russell Wilson and the stats. We have to give him credit for the red zone conversion. Offensive red zone conversion rate is at a 10 to 15 year low right now. Teams are just doing a really good job of flexing defensively in the red zone, but Wilson's been pretty good there mostly. I mean, that was probably the big difference in that Kansas City game other than the turnovers. I mean, Broncos executed in the red zone. The Chiefs did not. So that can be big. The one thing, though, we have the stat that I like to talk about a lot. You as well. A lot of NFL analytics nerds. The EPA. I wish that we could take away scoring plays from EPA just to see what that would look like, a little bit more normalized, because given the massive discrepancy that you're seeing in the Broncos in terms of the actual scoring plays so far and how much actual scoring plays weigh on EPA, I wonder if the passing offense would drop to bottom 5, bottom 10, and the rushing offense would jump up to maybe top 10, top 5. We'll see. Maybe we'll see that normalized, but only 1 rushing touchdown to 14 passing touchdowns. Kind of a bizarre trend. And shout out to Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, and those guys for getting it. Whatever the number is there, Scott, you have to let me know. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but they've been pretty good in that aspect. So fun to watch, and good shout out there. Good question. And Scott's correcting me. 16. So I don't want to pull away those 2 touchdowns there from Wilson. Every single one of them counts. So yeah, 16 to 1 rushing touchdown. What a discrepancy. We got Randy Jones coming in. Randy, it has been a long time since we've seen this name on here. So appreciate you coming in with the support here, and hope you're doing well, man. Broncos start winning, and we got some names that we haven't seen in a while joining us here. So thank you, man, so much. No, this one. Carl, I'll let you read this one because I feel like Naj brought the energy so much in that last game, and I kind of doubted him a bit. And riding high, give me that Naj energy.
That's right, Naj. Good to see you here with the 1990 Super, turning it orange for us. Thank you so much. Saying, hey, brothers, ownership has been spectacular. Bills facing a must-win game, in my opinion. Fans will be on fire. This is a daunting task. I want to see the team match the Bills' intensity pound the football and maintain discipline on D. Yeah, I mean, really for both teams, this is a pretty big must-win game. Bills being 5-4, the AFC is just so compact right there in the middle teams of who's going to emerge. So it really could come down to some tiebreakers here. If Broncos beat the Bills and they're tied at the end of the season, that's one of those tiebreakers of the head-to-head win. And same for the Bills on the other side of it, and them trying to keep pace with the Dolphins. Like I said, for both teams, this is just a huge, huge game for them. And it's a daunting task for the Broncos on the road. You never know. I haven't looked at the weather yet for Buffalo. It could be anything in November. Here it's like 75 today. Last week for Halloween, it was like 35, something like that. So I can't imagine what it's going to be in Buffalo this week. So you never know what's going to happen with that. The Bills fans are crazy. They're jumping through tables, all those kind of things. Always fun to see. And Josh Allen, I mean, he's always going to be that X factor that you just never know. He's going to make either a great throw, a great run, something like that. You have to play perfect on D. And like you said, maintain that discipline. I think that's one of the best things the Broncos showed in that Chiefs game. They didn't really give Mahomes a place to escape. They just kept those lanes very well with the four guys coming after him. And just he's kind of used to finding those little creases, and then all of a sudden he runs for 25 yards on a 3rd and 15 play. And you're just going, this sucks that he can actually do this kind of thing. And he never had very many of those kind of opportunities. I think he had one, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody laid a huge hit on him when he tried to take off running. And so Josh Allen, it's going to be a lot of that same thing. You got to be disciplined. You got to pick your moments when you're going to really rush, get that speed around the edge, because if you miss, you've got a lane open for him to take off running. And so big game for the Broncos, big game for the Bills. I can't wait to see it there in primetime on Monday night.
Yeah, it should be fun. Like Naj said, with the very generous 1999 Super, Bills are going to feel a little bit desperate in this one, but Josh Allen's a little bit beat up, and they kind of went into a weird situation against the Bengals where they fell under that dangerous trap, which is fun in video games, but not in real life, where you have a big quarterback, you're playing shotgun 11 personnel, and you are throwing around the yard, and your quarterback is essentially your run game. You're not doing that under center run game stuff. And like I said, in a video game, that can be a lot of fun, but Josh Allen's taken some hits. I think Tom Brady even criticized him last week about, taking hits, but that Bills team doesn't really have other buttons they can push out there, right? Yeah. They invested in the offensive line this offseason, but they don't really have the run game from under center right now. James Cook is more of a complementary pass weapon versus an under center, taking it to them kind of guy. So they almost look like they're, again, reverting back to the tendencies of last year's team on offense. And it could be explosive, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit erratic. And I just wonder if Josh Allen, how many hits can he take? That shoulder looked like it was bothering him in that game. Granted, it's Monday night, but those hits add up over a season. And it feels pretty early for the Bills to be hitting that button for them. I understand it, in the playoffs, reckless abandon kind of stuff, but this is a marathon. Right. And they're playing with him like it's a sprint. So we'll see. Can the Broncos do good enough on 1st and 2nd down to get into those 3rd downs? Can they do some of those rushing games that we saw from Lou Aramenia? I can never pronounce the Bengals defensive coordinator name right. He's fantastic, but one day I'll get it right. But they're playing a lot of games on the right side of that line. We'll see what they're able to do. Stu McPeak, always seeing what we're doing in here. 1999 says, hi all. Hi to you, Stu. As Chad always likes to say, on the Rushmore of the MHH super chat givers. We appreciate you, Stu. Always really was great to meet you and the fam at the MHH tailgate as well. And hope you're doing well. If you got any other questions for us, hit us up. You got one in the bank now, but if it's just the hi all, really do appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. And hope things are going great. Robbie Red 199 says, what's up with Samaje Perine? Williams looks great as the running back 1. Oh man, I could go into this all day about the intricacies of why Perine has value to this team, but Carl, what do you think? What's up with Perine?
Well, you're right. I think he has incredible value. He has been a great blocker on 3rd down pass situations. He's a great receiver. I think he was like 4th in the league right now for yards above expected for receptions out of running backs. And that's saying something. Like I said, he's a very big time value for the Broncos at this point, because Russell Wilson, it's kind of been if his first read's not open, a lot of times he's taking that check down or a sack, one of those three things, seems like. And that check down is usually the running back. And P. Ryan, like I said, just turning some of those plays into very positive things for the Broncos has been great. Now, yes, he's not your guy that's going to break a ton of tackles, especially in the run game. He's not going to pick up a lot of those big time extra yards that you see from Javonte, but he's still falling forward. I think he's gotten better as the season has gone on. You know, a couple of those early games, he had some really questionable decision making in his running lanes. And, you know, I think we've talked about it quite a bit on this show, but he had one where it was like a 3rd and 1. And lane was wide open to run just straight forward. And he decided to try to win to the edge to get a big play instead of just pick up the first down. And that's just one of those not understanding fully who you are. You know, I think maybe the offense was kind of just sputtering a little bit and was just hoping like we need a big play. Sometimes guys get into that mindset. And so, yeah, I think he's been a great number 2 running back. Now, of course, you know, you've got a dynamic number 3 running back on the roster. And so you want to give him some touches, but I still think P. Ryan, he's a very solid guy, going to do all the right things for you. Like I said, especially in that 3rd down offense, those are the kind of guys you need.
Yeah. That's the big thing. You kind of touched on it already, is that P. Ryan is, I think, by far your best pass game back. And that isn't just the fluidity, sure-handedness in space as a receiver, but it is the pass protection too. I mean, if it's a shotgun, obvious pass down, I'm not a big empty set fan person in general, unless you're going to be calling, quarterback draws or power out of that, which every once in a while is fine. But I don't want to give the defense like, oh, this is going to be a pass no matter what. I want the defensive line to have to think, the safeties, et cetera, et cetera. So P. Ryan being out there, he is your best pass protecting back. If you have a free rusher coming on, he's going to step in and give you the best chance to stone that guy and give Russell Wilson a chance to extend the play, get rid of the ball, et cetera, et cetera. I also saw a next-gen stat from ESPN today that P. Ryan, I think, is the 3rd highest receiving yards over expectation running back this season. So it aggregates like all the data of the NFL, where guys caught the ball and what they every single one of those catches resulted in, average for that, versus what P. Ryan got as the numerator over that denominator. And he's been pretty good in that aspect as well. So there's been a few good plays with them. He'll make that first guy miss, especially if it's a defensive back. So good player. Broncos are in a very fortunate situation where they've have 3 good backs, and all 3 have been relatively healthy. Let's hope that trend continues. That's not a guarantee. But P. Ryan's been a really useful player for this team, and he's the one he provides a skill set that neither of the other 2 really have.
Right. And McLaughlin, I mean, he's been a great number 3 where you try to find him 5 or 6 touches a game just because he is that explosive guy. But I'm not sure how much I would trust him being that true number 2 yet. Just because, like I said, P. Ryan, you don't know if it's a run or pass when he comes in. And he can handle those short yardage situations. He can handle catching a pass out of the backfield, go run, pick up a nice first down for you. And so, like I said, I want McLaughlin to get touches. Don't get me wrong. And I think you can increase his opportunities as the season goes on, kind of like they're hoping Marvin Mims can get more opportunities as the season goes on. But I like that you have that trusted player that you know is going to do the right thing at the right time almost every single time for you.
Yeah. He's been a solid contributor for this team, without a doubt. Roy Osborne coming into this game. Broncos-Bills are going to be dependent on what Bronco team shows up. Coming off the bye week, anything is possible. Hello, Nick, Carl, and Scott. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the injury report looks like when it comes out Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know if it changes because it's a Monday game. But hopefully they're healthy, and hopefully they found something with what they've been doing the last few weeks. But Bills are a tough task. I know that everybody said, what's wrong with Josh Allen? What's wrong with the Bills offense? They're still humming in a top 5 offense output. It's the defense has fallen off an absolute cliff over the last 4 weeks. So we'll see what happens with the Bills here. I mean, they lost Matt Milano, they lost Tre'Davious White. Von Miller does not look like Von Miller of old that we've seen. So it's a pretty mediocre defense, and they've gotten old and expensive on that side as well. And draft picks on that side haven't hit. I mean, first round pick, Kaiir Elam, bust. Gregory Rousseau, not been very good out there for them. So yeah, it's a it's a defense that's vulnerable, and hopefully the Broncos can take advantage of it. We got Valdez BTW coming in with the Patrick Starr picture there over on Twitch saying, "Hey, what's up? Good to see you, Valdez. Appreciate you coming over on the Twitch side of things." Rodney Garcia also comes in and says, "Evening, Nick and Carl and Scott. Broncos defense needs to contain Josh Allen in the pocket and convert turnovers on the offense, run the ball down the defensive line's throat." Yeah, good chance to talk a little bit about the Bills defense. Like we said, they've fallen off a bit. Digging into the data, Carl, this is a interesting defense from a personnel perspective because they are going to play nickel defense 4-2-5 against you pretty much no matter what. I've been digging through a lot of the data, and they're a team that almost like you're running heavy against us, it's going to be our nickel. You're running 10 personnel against us, you're probably going to see nickel defense. So I think it's like something like 85% of their defense is a 4-2-5 look, which is crazy because you have a different variations of nickel as well. So hopefully the Broncos can be good rushing against them in that front. They've been okay there, stopping the run out of 11 personnel, out of their 4-2-5 defense this season. But maybe the Broncos come with heavy personnel with how good they've been blocking with the tight ends as well. Maybe the Broncos can take advantage of that from a numbers and hat-on-hat perspective.
Yeah, their defense and two of their losses, especially teams really committed to the run game. That Jets loss, they gave up 172 yards rushing, 6.1 yards per carry. Now, that was kind of exaggerated because they gave up a really big run. I think it was like a 76-yard run to Breece Hall. But then the Jags game, that's another one where they had 40 carries in that one. Just crazy kind of numbers. And they just saw a little bit of a weakness that we're just going to grind this game out. And I think they rushed for like 196 yards. And so, yeah, I think that's going to have to be the Broncos game plan in this one of maybe getting some of those big packages. We talked about this a little bit earlier today of those 6 offensive linemen. Like, let's go see that formation just over and over and just kind of go run over people. And just, you've got a 3-headed monster in that backfield. Let those guys go out there, do their job, and then work that play action offense with Russell Wilson, some wide receivers, maybe running some deep routes for you, and just keep this game close. Hopefully at the end, you find that way to make that one more big play than the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, and take the ball away. As Rodney's point was, you got to take advantage because Josh Allen will throw some arm punts out there at some point. It cannot be the game where it slips through your hands as a defensive back. I know a lot of those guys are defensive backs because they couldn't, make it as the with the hands team. But you got to come down with it in these games and take advantage of those opportunities. And not only come down with it, but look to convert. Right, like flip the field, score points. That defense needs to be hunting in this one. And with my team MVP so far, maybe we can see some of that with Justin Simmons. Watch out for that one. We got Danielle Berry Sports coming in saying, "Hey, good to see you." Our guy Ernie Mays in the house going, "Go Broncos country only." Hello, Scott, Nick, and Carl. Go Ernie only. We appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well. Pearl Heater in the house saying, "Hi, good to see you." We have Joe coming in saying they didn't have enough room for all the people given all the ones working at the stadium instead of Dove Valley. I think he's talking about the facility upgrades here. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool to see. Do you have any thoughts? I saw a lot of the conversation today, bringing it back to the new facilities in the ownership group. They're getting rid of the bleachers. They're talking about Broncos fans wanting to sit in the grass there, a little bit more of a natural thing there. Saw there was a little bit of conversation about that for the practice observation side of things.
Yeah, I'm hoping they figure out a way to get some more shade for the fans. Let's put some kind of canopy over the top of them because if you're sitting on that hillside, about end of practice, you're melting. I mean, it is hot in Denver. I know it might only seem like it's 85 degrees, but sitting on that hillside, it's getting up over 100 for you. And so, like I said, if I could make one big recommendation, if you really want to make it about the fan experience, and I understand it's also about helping the players and the coaches and everybody else, but I don't think that would be a huge expense just to find a way to put some kind of canopy to cover at least part of that in some way, some form. And so I can't wait to see how it all looks at the end. I know a lot of the repairs or changes and everything else, it's not really going to be much that the fans get to see. We'll get to see it off in the distance and everything else. But I'm hoping that they're going to do some kind of walkthrough when they get all done with it. And I'm sure they will, just to show how everything has changed and And like I said, just having everything all in one place will make a huge difference for them. Just streamline it all. Everybody can be there having their conversations. And so I think this is going to be a great thing for the organization, for the coaches, for the front office, and hopefully for the players. They can just see how committed this organization is to winning. It starts with that ownership. I know some people talked about that with Pat Bowlen earlier in the comments. He was whatever it takes, whatever you guys need, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And he was willing to spend, even though he wasn't a very rich owner, he was willing to put that money behind it all. And it just really fed into those players that this is who our owner is. And I think the Pinner group is doing the same thing here.
Yeah, maybe even to a wider extent. Granted, the NFL landscape has changed dramatically since Bowlen was even the owner, let alone when he bought the team. But yeah, it's definitely an arms race. It kind of reminds me, since every team is dealing with the limitations of the salary cap, right? You just can't buy players. You can kind of manipulate the cap some if you have cash, but reminds me prior NIL and that stuff being out in the open, what big college teams are doing, right? They were spending, we have all this money. Well, big money on coaches and big money on facilities because we can't directly pay the players, even though whatever. But it's like some of those crazy like SEC, like, right, that's floating in the library, but gosh darn, every single locker has its own couch or something out there at LSU. So I think that's kind of what this reminds me of, having the rich owner in the NFL. You still do have the limitations of the structure of the salary cap, but you spend huge money on facilities, on this, hopefully training staff as well. You can pay as much as you want to your coaches. Sean Payton, we don't have the actual numbers from the coaching contracts, but I would imagine Sean Payton's probably one of the biggest 3 contracts ever getting to an NFL coach or a college coach in history. I think that's probably a safe assumption, given, get him out of retirement and everything that comes with that. But yeah, that's the owners are definitely putting their money where their mouth is here, and really no excuse for them. They're going to have high standards, and hopefully that breeds a championship culture for the Broncos here. I did see also some media griping a bit that they had to give up, some of their parking areas are going to be gone with this renovation to the facilities here. But like you said, a more streamlined, connected process here, and hopefully will result in just a little bit of edge for the Broncos. And maybe that makes a difference, one game down the stretch, or bringing in one more player in free agency because of the facilities. I mean, those things, they matter. And it's nice to see the Broncos are spending where they can spend to improve the product.
Yeah, we got KB82. Oh, I'll go ahead. Yeah, KB82 coming in with a $4.99 super, saying, what's the chance Denver actually beats the Bills? And if so, is it a whole new season? So I'll start with the last part there. Yes, it is a whole new season if the Broncos win. You're 4-5. You are right there in the mix. You're looking ahead at this schedule, and it's got some promising games. I mean, Minnesota's still finding ways to win, even with Kirk Cousins going down with his injury. You still got the Chargers games. Raiders just had a great game. I don't know exactly what all they're going to be the rest of the year. You still got that Detroit game. That's going to be a pretty big one as well. So it's still not the easiest schedule, but it's manageable. And the NFL really is about just that momentum thing. If you get players really believing and starting to think that they can do some things, it just makes a huge difference. And Broncos so far, they haven't had a whole lot of that kind of mentality where players could believe in what they're doing for a long time. And so, like I said, just some of those, especially young players, starting to believe in this coaching staff. Once you start stacking those wins, I think the Broncos could go on a nice run here. And what's the chance of Denver beating the Bills?
If they played 10 times, how many games did the Broncos win?
3.
I was going to say 2 to 3, like in Buffalo, right? With all these circumstances.
Right.
That's much higher than we thought a few weeks ago. So,
yeah,
I mean, the spread is 7.5. I think that's a good guess. That's what I would have said as well, Carl.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that if the Broncos are going to win this one, it will be a new season. They have belief right now. I thought you were about to go into a whole, Ted Lasso kind of thing here. But yeah, if you beat the Bills and then you have a chance to Sunday Night Football against the Josh Dobbs with the I can't even think what the nickname they put for him, the rocket scientist there. But you get the 500 and you got a chance. There's a lot of tough teams in the AFC, obviously. But you win the Bills, you're sticking around for another week. And let me tell you, the belief in that locker room would certainly be high. Phil McLaughlin coming in saying, what's the over-under for Monday night? 21. 21 would be the lowest over-under we'd probably ever seen in NFL history. So I can't imagine that it's there. If I had to guess, it'd probably be closer to 38. But
46.5.
46.5. Yeah,
Yep.
they were freaking out about the Iowa Northwestern game being at 29, like being one of the lowest ever. So definitely not 21, unless you're talking about just for one team scoring. But 21 would be unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. That 46.5, that's a 24 to 23 kind of game. So it's not too crazy to think about. I mean, Broncos just scored 24 against the Chiefs, who you could argue might be the best defense they play all year. And even then, I mean, they had a blocked field goal that kept them from going to 27. Now they also had a lot of short fields that made it a little bit easier to get to that 24 points. But I don't think it'd be that crazy for the Broncos to get to 24, 27 points in this game. Just like you said earlier, the Bills defense really having some struggles lately. And just, I think one of the big areas that you're seeing them struggle compared to few years before, tackling. They're just not a very disciplined team. They're not only tackling, but they're getting a lot more penalties than they've had in the years before. And so you see all those things kind of piling up. It leads to the Broncos could sneak a couple extra scores in this one that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah. They're definitely vulnerable right now, and hopefully the Broncos are trending in the right direction. So that'll be very good to see from Broncos, of course. And Carl, just any more thoughts on this addition to the Broncos, ownership spending? Obviously, you had them spending huge money last year for just one game to get the turf better. You had them obviously with the big head coach things. Does this mean anything down the line for new stadium, other fan experiences? I mean, you have any other thoughts about where they can put their money to use to not only improve the quality of the product on the field, but the fan experience?
Yeah, you have to think that eventually they want to do a stadium. I don't think they're in a huge rush by any means, because that's a huge money commitment. I mean, it's one thing to commit 175 million. It's another thing to commit 10 billion to the building of a new stadium. And I'm sure that they're trying to figure out, okay, do we want to keep this stadium where it's at? Because I know there's a lot of, especially people in Denver, they love where it's at. They're in downtown. It's where it's been forever, but it's limited. You've just got you're just so limited in space. You think about the parking lot. Like my dad was at the meet and greet with me, and he got there like 2 hours early, and they said that they'd already run out of parking. Now I'm kind of looking around, and I'm like, there's not that many parking spots already sold, but like I said, if they could go somewhere else, they could double that kind of parking spots, which brings in more revenue for the team. They could build an entire facility around it of, different types of entertainment. So it just makes an even greater experience for the fans. So that's why I still think eventually the stadium's going to be moved maybe towards the outskirts of town, maybe towards the airport, because it's easier for traveling people coming in. You can go straight to the stadium right there. They can build a lot of hotels. There's just a lot that they can do to make this a huge money-making opportunity for them and for the Broncos. And so I don't think that's going to happen within the next 3 or 4 years by any means, but maybe 2026, they start the building project for it.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to follow. I know there's not enough land really to build a giant, Bronco land, so to speak. But the fact that the ownership of the land of the facilities made a huge difference for them doing what they did with the training facilities makes me wonder if there is a chance that they'll keep the stadium at their own where it currently is. Maybe play somewhere else for a year or something. I don't know, but maybe this is just me hoping beyond all hope that they can keep it downtown where it is right now, because it's just, there's something a little bit more magical when it's in the hub of things, not on the outskirts where it's like, barren wasteland for miles and miles, or you have to constantly, drive to get there. I like it when it feels like it's downtown, like the neighborhood's been built around it. I know it's more expensive there, but if you own the land, maybe there's something they can do there. You're probably right. There's been a lot of talk about keeping it or moving something to potentially out to DIA, but we'll see. I'm still optimistic that we can keep it downtown for Denver. KB82 comes in here, 499, says, do you know of the offers for Sutton, Judy, or the others? Were any of them close to happening? I did hear that Adam Schefter mentioned that there was a potential third-round pick in a trade for Jerry Judy. I am curious what team that was. I'm also curious if it was Denver sending back, like if you're getting a third-round pick back, but it's Judy and a fourth. Well, that's not really the value of a third-round pick now, is it? Especially if it's from a playoff team. Are we talking about the difference of 20 picks there? That's not a good trade, in my opinion. So don't have anything specific. A lot of things are thrown out, but yeah, it's the only one I know is I heard Schefter mention a third-round pick for Judy, but from what I heard, it wasn't just a Judy going back in that deal.
Yeah, and it sounded like the offers for Sutton were late-round picks, nothing of huge value. It'd be more of a Broncos trying to move on from his contract than actually meeting the value of the player. So I don't think many of them were all that close. With that win against the Chiefs, Broncos had a lot more leverage to hold their ground, say we believe in our guys, we want to move forward with them, and we're not just in that complete sell everybody and restart kind of mode that some people were talking about. So that Chiefs game really did. It made a huge difference. This is where I wish the trade deadline was after the Bills game, just because, if you win the Chiefs game and the Bills game, that we talked about earlier, it changes the whole dynamic of this season. The Chiefs game, it changes it, but you're still in that, like, I want to believe, but I can't because I've been hurt too many times for the last 7 years. And so, I mean, a lot of these players, I am happy that they kept Sutton. Like we said earlier, he's been pretty much the offensive player of the year for the Broncos, making a lot of those tough catches. That one this last week, just going up over the top along the sideline there. Oh my gosh. It doesn't get much tougher than that. I mean, the guy's interfering with you, and then you jump up there and make that catch. That's what he does. And I just wish Russell Wilson would trust him more. Let him go make a lot more of those kind of plays. Like his great year back in 2019, as much as we dog on Drew Lock and what he did here with the Broncos, like he just had complete trust in Sutton. Like Sutton's one-on-one, oh, it's going to Sutton. I'm just going to throw it up there and let this guy go make some ridiculous catch. And I get not doing that every time, but I wish there was just a couple more times Russ was willing to force it in there a little bit.
Yeah. It's rough, right? Because there's the balanced aggression where you got to protect the football too. And is this really truly an explosive enough offense where you can live with putting the ball in harm's way to go hunt for those big plays? I don't know, right? Like that's one of the big detriments of Drew Lock is that he just had, YOLO balls out there, and it was not really controlled aggression. Kind of
Right.
couldn't really tame that Bronco, so to speak. But we'll see. I would like to see a little bit more. I would like to see more schematically shot plays to Sutton as well. You're living up, you're building up to this play, you're setting up the whole game, and then boom, at the right moment, take a shot. But hard to complain too much from what we've seen the offense become the last few weeks. Maybe run it a little bit better out of the shotgun, maybe a little bit better play action usage as well. Maybe drop some of the shotgun quick game stuff that has not been great. But I don't know. It's especially considering 2 of the last 3 games have been against the Chiefs, which look like a top 5 defense in football. And especially in the last game, Broncos looked okay there. Northcutt saying, like how honest you guys are, but geez, a little positivity, fellas. I think we have been positive.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the 3 out of 10 times, but that's a 7.5 point dog, right? That's a pretty good chance, honestly, going to Bills. I mean, that shows the direction of both these teams right now. They have a real shot going into that game, and that's awesome.
And remember, the Bills have been Super Bowl contenders for the last 2, 3, 4 years now. Mm-hmm. I think they've had 10 wins every year since 2019. They had 13 wins last year or something like that, 12 wins, somewhere in there. So, I mean, they're still a really talented team. And we're talking about, like you said, the Broncos going on the road and being able to hang with them. Compared to where we were earlier with the Miami game to where they are now. I mean, that's quite a bit of change in the belief in this team. And so it's a cautious optimism. at this point. You've got two wins under your belt in a row. It's just so hard because there's been times where the Broncos have shown like those little flashes of hope over these last 7 years, and then it gets dashed very quickly. Now, I have a lot more trust in Sean Payton to be able to sustain long periods of good play, just because he is a very good coach. I think he talked about it a couple of weeks ago. They were asking about the bye week, and they said, how do you plan out a bye week? And he said, I went and talked to some of the coaches that have done the best, like an Andy Reid. He said, I asked him, what do you do for your bye week that lets you have this kind of success? And he said he's taken some things from those kind of guys to build up his plan for how he handles a bye week. So again, I like that gives me a little bit more confidence in the Broncos to be able to go get this big win. I like that the team seems very healthy compared to a lot of other teams, even like the Bills, a little beat up, quarterbacks especially beat up. And so some things are really breaking in the Broncos' favor, but it's still, like I said, it's just such a tough time to fully go in and say, this is the team.
Yeah. Denver's got a chance. And man, if they can beat them, we're talking about a whole new season here. And Broncos definitely know that too. I mean, you can't make too much about one game, right? But they have belief and they know if they take this one, they're going to be playing for some meaningful stuff down the stretch here. So it should be fun. Paul comes in and says the Bills are physical. Yeah, they have drafted some big guys on the defensive line over the last, 3-4 years. None of them have really been massive hits as far as difference makers. Now, granted, they haven't really taken many superstar for top 10 kind of guys, but Gregory Rousseau, Carlos Basham, AJ Epinesa, some other guys as well along that front, which have been good other than Ed Oliver. That I guess that was their top 10 guy, but they've invested a lot in the trenches. And because of that, I think it's one of the reasons they can play that nickel style defense and still have some success against the run. But it's going to be interesting to see if the Broncos can manufacture a solid run game out of that 12 personnel, out of that 21 personnel. Over the last 2 weeks, we've really seen Sean Payton and the Broncos start to implement a heavier use of under center game as well as heavy personnel. We've had, his name, Quinn Bailey, I think has had something like 16 snaps over the last 2 games. I mean, that's not an insignificant number there for a 6 offensive lineman out there, not out there due to injury, literally as a reporting eligible kind of guy. So I'm curious to see those games out there. If you were, Carl, this is your chance. Obviously, you don't get another chance before the Bills. What would your game plan be if you were Sean Payton in this game going up against the Bills?
Well, like I said, on defense, it's a lot of contain. I'm playing a lot of nickel, and I'm going to especially tell Patrick Surtain, like, we're going to need you big time in this one going up against Diggs. We're going to have you following him a lot in that man coverage. I'm doing a lot of what I would consider, it's not really a blitz, but especially having kind of that watcher that just kind of keeps an eye on Josh Allen, kind of keeps him working in that pocket. So you got almost a 5th guy, but he's not always blitzing. And then every once in a while, send him just to keep him honest. I mean, the Broncos have not been a good blitzing team at all this year. But like I said, just having that guy that keeps him contained in that pocket, because once he escapes, anything happens. He can make magic happen. He's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's in that next tier of what a quarterback can do. And like I said, with his legs, he's been a great runner for him this year. I'd say he's probably been their top running back on the team, if we can call him that. I'm not going to worry too much about the running game, so I feel like I can play a little bit more nickel compared to base package, even when they go a little bit big. Almost pull the playbook of the Bills to challenge the Bills here. And then on offense, I mean, it's just going to be a heavy dose of the running game over and over again. I mean, just make this game a little bit shorter, take away possessions from Josh Allen. Like I said, they play a ton of nickel. Either force them out of that or just allow that running game to take over and just trust that this is who we are. This is our identity. This is what we've established, especially these last 2 games. This is what we want to do. Stick with that. I feel like one of the weaknesses of Sean Payton is he wants to pass, because that's the NFL. And he's even talked about it, that he's had times where he's just abandoned the run game because he wants to throw the ball all over the field. And this is one of those games, again, you just got to stay disciplined. Even if a couple of the run plays don't work early on, stick with it. And then that play action. Marvin Mims. I just want to see a couple shot plays to him down the field, keep that Bills defense honest, knowing that the Broncos could beat him over the top. Cortland Sutton, like you said, just a couple shot plays to him, and just see what you can do. The Bills, I think they're vulnerable to a lot of underneath passes. They like to kind of back up all of a sudden on defense. It's like they're almost playing a little bit scared. And so this could be a big game for Jerry Jeudy if I believed in Jerry Jeudy. That's my only problem there, as I don't know how much I can trust him to be a consistent playmaker for you. But if there is a game that Jerry Jeudy could really go out there and have a couple really big impact plays, like I said, Bills not tackling well, just get the ball into Jerry Jeudy's hands, let him go make a couple guys miss, see what he can do, turn it up the field. And I mean, all this is easier said than done, obviously. But I just feel like you just really need to lean into your identity at this point, because it is kind of the Bills' weakness at this level of they're vulnerable to teams that really commit to the run game.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Bills have also been very vulnerable to the quick pass games on the outside the hash marks. In between the hash marks, they've been very good, but outside the hash marks, they've been bottom 5, I think, in EPA per play over the last 4 weeks on both left outside the hash marks and right outside the hash marks from the 1 to 9 yards from the line of scrimmage. So look for that as well. I know that Russell Wilson, historically not the best quick game quarterback in terms of the accuracy and timing there, but maybe they can manufacture some touches there and really focus to take advantage of some of those weaknesses the Bills have. One other area I do want to say, and the Bills have been trying very hard this last season recently, and somebody who I liked a lot, I know Scott liked a lot coming out of the draft, but he's really struggled in pass protection. Spencer Brown has been dreadful against pass rushers in those situations, and we've already talked about the Bills struggling to run the football. There's going to be some third and long opportunities here, and I see comments in here as well about this guy. Could be a Baron Browning announcing himself kind of game, or even Nick Benito too. But I think the Broncos should really try to focus on how they can isolate Spencer Brown against some of their really talented young pass rushers. And that could be something that, maybe get a strip sack here or there or a big play. But Spencer Brown is somebody who is a detriment on that offensive line right now in pass protection, and good defenses should take advantage of that.
I like it. Sounds good. Broncos winning.
Broncos
I'm going to pull a Naj here. Broncos are going to find a way to win this game. I don't think it's going to be completely pretty. I'll put out my full score prediction for our article that we put out later for Mile High Huddle. But I think Broncos coming off the bye, seems like these two teams are going in opposite directions at this point. I feel like Sean Payton's going to have a couple little special plays that he's had 2 weeks to work on this, to get ready for this one. And I think he's really going to want to establish Broncos are back. So Naj, you got me excited there at the meet and greet, and got me believing that the Broncos could actually pull one out here. So I will say, I think the Broncos will do just enough and maybe have a big turnover, big special teams play, something along those lines. We didn't even talk about special teams. Broncos have been truly, I think that's one of the biggest changes from last year to this year. Broncos have been a top 5 special teams unit in football. It is crazy to see. Those coverage units, incredible. You got Mims as a returner. Anything can happen with him back there. Got a very trusted kicker. Punter's a little questioning. My son got Ultimate Madden and got the Broncos punter the other day, and he's like, "Dad, is this guy good?" I'm like, "Sure, son, sure. Let's go that way." But no, like I said, I think there's going to be a couple of really big plays for the Broncos in this one. The Bills are just vulnerable to it. So we got Michael coming in saying Sean Payton did mention the USC flea flicker play during his press conference call yesterday. So like I said, I think there might be a couple little special plays. And Michael also with some stars saying, "Great show tonight, Nick and Carl, on building the Broncos. Go Broncos." Michael, thank you so much for all the stars and just always tuning in with us. And just definitely everybody else, thank you guys for coming in. And, Broncos, a lot of good things happening. Ownership spending a lot of money. We'll see what happens.
Hoping for some good things. Thanks you so much, Michael, for the super chats there to close us out. Also, Zebulon, I couldn't leave this one. He said, yeah, it was Champ Kelly, not Champ Bailey. Saw somebody say Champ Bailey. It's an easy mix up, but Champ Kelly was in the Broncos organization for a number of years. He is now the interim general manager of the Raiders after Dave Ziegler was relieved of his duties along with Josh McDaniels. So, yeah, it's Champ Kelly out there. So, wishing him nothing but misfortune. No, that's just kidding. It's not that bad, but you can't cheer for the Raiders. So, good luck, whatever's next. And if hopefully you don't have too much success with the Raiders out there, champ. But appreciate everyone coming in today. We're at an hour. We're going to wrap it on up. Make sure you're following Carl and I on Twitter. Carl is at Carl Dumler, MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also, make sure you guys are following us at BTB Football Pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, if you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe to the Mile High Huddle over on YouTube, like the show, and share on all social media platforms. Carl, any final thoughts before we get on out of here? What's new? What's going on? You're definitely sending the good vibes for the Bills. I'm going to have to circle back to make sure that you are not just, revving everybody up here. You better actually pick the Broncos when those predictions come in.
I'm torn because I've picked against the Broncos the last 2 weeks, and then they go out and win. Mm-hmm. So do I break that? I don't know. I'll pick the Broncos this week, but I do. I just think they're the healthier team. They got better momentum going, and I trust Sean Payton maybe more than I should. I'm starting to really become a believer in what he's doing and how he's really changing around this organization at this point, making players truly a believer, getting everybody on board. VJ's completely made a nice little turnaround here. I still want to see a couple more games of it to fully believe that VJ is the guy for the future. But it's just been great to see where this team was week one to where they are right now. A lot of years we've had a lot of where there's a little bit of promise at the beginning of the season and then everything collapsed as the year went along. So good to see it going the other way this time.
Yeah, I am with you 100%. I think the biggest holdup for me is the defense still, right? Like 2 games against Kansas City, that's fine. Green Bay didn't look so good. If they can hold up against the Bills, who still are playing really good football, maybe we've had a major turnaround here. So should be fun. A lot of fun hanging out with you guys. Hope you're doing well. Make sure you continue to choose kindness, compassion. Have a great rest of your week. Hopefully daylight savings isn't kicking your butt too hard. Go Broncos.